I was asked quite a few times to make a video about the animal farm just to basically go over it, especially with everything that has happened as of late. I did a few with Drip talking about the major flaws in the whole model, and this is what I'm gonna be doing here. Because on Telegram, when I reference the animal farm, I say that's the Ponzi farm, and I'm not saying that out of FUD or out of spite. No, I'm not invested in this and I will never invest in this. And here in this video, I'm gonna talk about the major giveaways as to why this thing is very flawed in regards to its core model, in regards to how it rewards investors, and in regards to everything that has been going on behind the scenes. So, what I'm going to be discussing today are the major giveaways and the major points where, in my opinion, this farm falls short in regards to whatever it was promising and all of the things that it was given out. Alright, so first things first, the total value locked has fallen by 50% since launch. I think it was about 150 something million, close to 160 million. Now it's a bit more than 67 million, so close to 68 million. And money leaving a platform only shows one thing: its failure to actually providing what it said it will. Now, the main selling point of the animal farm that was portrayed when there was the first version, and then funds were held hostage, and then the second version arrived after several months, are the Pigpen and the Dogpound. Because this farm relies on two assets, dogs and pigs staked in the Pigpen rewards you in BUSD. So if I go right now, not the piggy bank, but the Pigpen. So if I go there, you would see that you have pigs staked, and those pigs staked would give you back BUSD as a reward, and a bit of pigs as well. And that vault is actually being replenished in BUSD from two major sources. So you have the taxes on the platform and you have fees upon depositing, and that's the first major issue. So the unique selling point of this farm relies on taxes and fees, and you have to pay 6% to enter the farms. That's unheard of. Every farm that I've been in, I paid maximum 2% or 0. Even the 2% that I paid, I was very reluctant. Luckily I made that back plus some. But 6% honestly is a bit too much. Not to mention the fact that once you enter these farms and you, let's say, farm dogs, because that's the asset that you'll farm the most, unless you pair that dogs with BUSD, then you can farm pigs. But farming dogs will start you at the 90% selling tax if you were to sell those dogs at the beginning. And that will take me to my second point, where the dog pound relies on that heavy extra tax to get that BNB in the dog pound to reward the dog stakers. So both of the Pigpen and the dog pound are only reliant on fees and taxes overall. So the unique selling points of the farm rely on the sell pressure from the native asset to reward the people who have entered them. So think about this for a sec. You buy an asset that is worth, let's see, what is where is pigs worth today? I mean, look at this chart. Horrendous, right? So let's do a 6-month zoom out. So imagine you buy an asset here that was worth, let's say, 135 bucks, and during that period you're earning BUSD, but your asset is depreciating at a larger pace than that BUSD that you're earning, which is also decreasing because over time the more people enter, the less you get, and they also have to put more BUSD into the Pigpen to reward these people. So your native assets worth is reducing, and that BUSD you're taking in exchange is not really worth it. All right. And not only that, if we were to basically follow up with the devs model in giving an injection of 100k per week to the Pigpen, you need about 2.5 million generated from selling, and then you apply the tax on that amount, and then you're gonna get that 100k. So 2.5 million in sell volume per week. I don't think we're doing 1/10 of that volume when it comes to dog taxes, because the pig's taxes actually do not reward the pig pen. They are much lower, and they also go into the marketing and I think DEF fees, so on and so forth. And speaking of DEF fees, there's a lot of them, and I just wanna reiterate something, because this is also something that was in the main selling point of the farm, is that the farm also relies on the rehypothecation of its TVL to generate more yield, meaning that 68 million that you see is being staked on PancakeSwap to generate upwards of 40% per year. We're talking APR here. But none of that money will actually benefit you. There's 30% of this that will go into buybacks, and we know very well that buybacks are a waste of money. Everything else, so 70% of whatever this is earning, goes to the dev team. So you have the dev team taking money from rehypothecation from your money. It's like you gave them money to stake somewhere to get the majority of this yield from staking those millions. Just put these things together to understand how much they're making and how much you're making. You're probably losing on a daily basis with these assets plummeting in price as time goes on. You're getting breadcrumbs in BUSD, and at the end of the day, you took all the risk and they're taking most of the rewards. Now, to be upfront with you, I'm recording the second part of this video actually one day after I recorded the first bit, so you can clearly see that the TVL has dropped by 2 million since my first recording 24 hours ago versus right now. So I did this just to showcase that the total value locked in the animal farm is dropping, and I think that 2 million drop has a driver behind it, which is the team delaying once again products being released for drip. But that's not the topic of this video. I'm gonna continue my chain of logic when I'm tackling the liquidity squeeze part. So there's so much money that can be made here, right? So if you're not generating any revenue from your platform, at the end of the day, if people leave it and if people sell the native assets, there's so much you can give, for example, to the people in the Pigpen. Now, as I showed you previously, you need about 2.5 million from sell pressure and people entering the farms on a weekly basis to generate that 100k projected Pigpen injection. And I want to show you something interesting. So the previous two 100k injections were not actually generated by the farm. Very far from it. It was actually pulled out from the AFD liquidity, so the dog's liquidity on PancakeSwap. So let's pull out a few interesting transactions real quick, and if you wanna have these transactions with you, I can send them over. So there's one on the 9th of February, one on the 10th of January. So you can clearly see that there's about 100k that was put in the Pigpen, and following this up, that money has been actually taken away from the AFD liquidity. Check the timestamps, check how the activity has been done. Again, all of this is on chain. Now, on the 23rd of February, same thing. Money has been taken out from the AFD liquidity and 100k enters the Pigpen. Again, timestamps. There's actually a list of liquidity removals for several purposes, and the main one is Pigpen injections. All right, so again, I can leave links to these transaction hashes below, or perhaps I would rather send them directly. If someone is interested, they can catch me on Telegram in my DMs. So conclusion, there is a huge liquidity squeeze that is about to happen if nothing new comes in, and most probably the only new money that would come in is from investors, because the platform doesn't generate anything. It only has right now this going for it. It will most probably have some games. Like, the idea for the team is to get some games rolling for people to enter, and then taxes and revenues from these games to flow again into the animal farm, specifically into the Pigpen and the Dogpound. But other than that, there's nothing going on, meaning there's no real yield. And what I do mean by real yield, because there are actually platforms out there who operate by their own, meaning they have their own native asset, and by owning this asset, you are entitled of a share of the platform fees, because the platform does something. It trades with leverage. It, for example, also have a governance structure. It has a simple DEX and other things that I'm not gonna get into. So there's an actual product that people are using that generates revenue through fees, and the people who hold the token are entitled to a portion of it. And that model is something behind serious projects, not something like the animal farm, for example. And speaking of governance, because if you actually go on the main page, you can clearly see, sorry, it's 1 second, it's loading. So you can clearly see the message that they convey is that this is the first truly decentralized yield aggregating platform. And what is decentralization? There's nothing being, delegated to the community. The only vote that I could think of that happened was the Pigpen injection vote, and that was that. So the people who actually hold the AFP, which is a farmable token, which shouldn't be a governance token if you just go by logic, the only thing that they can do with is earn BUSD or sell it. There's no governance structure, nothing is decentralized. Because a truly decentralized structure, because an example of this is Curve, for example. You take the native asset, you basically have another escrowed version of it, and holding this version of it would allow you to participate in things like emissions, in things like you bribe the emissions, for example, and also future decisions that would be made on the protocol itself. And many, not only DEXs but protocols out there are doing this. So your voting power is not determined by the amount of pigs you have. You also need to, for example, lock the amount of native assets you have for a longer period of time to show commitment, and that gives you more voting power. So there's more to just holding a certain asset that would give you governance over a decentralized platform. It doesn't work like that. So AFD, the animal farm is certainly not a decentralized platform from that perspective. All right. So you can clearly see the full picture of everything that's been going on. Without new money, there's only enough money to cover obligations. APRs are not so attractive anymore. You need to have a deposit fee of 6% if you want to enter. So if I were to go now to the farms, let's quickly go over the farms. I don't know if I actually can see the APRs without being connected. I do. So you see they're no longer attractive. We're talking between 20, 30, and 50% with a deposit fee of 6%. So if you were to make that deposit fee back, you need several days. That's assuming the price of these two assets ain't gonna plummet. And one more thing I want to say, that by neglecting drip, you have the risk of a bank run on the animal farm. Some people don't really understand and don't grasp the nature of this whole TVL. This TVL came from drip being sold while it was pumping, generating money for the drip community, and then the animal farm came and several people took money from drip to invest in the animal farm. Meaning that is the product of people's money and involvement in the drip community. So if you were to declare drip and leave it to fend for itself, animal farm is not going to be so far behind in regards to insolvency. So please keep that in mind. Alright, so to wrap things up and to conclude everything I just said, the animal farm is whatever I just called it at the beginning because of these things. So it only relies on taxes to generate so-called revenue and yield for the participants. So that's not real yield, that's yield through inflation. And that's my second point. And there are fees to enter the farm, so the barrier of entry is quite high for something that is quite risky and potentially won't give you money at the end of the day. And also, the implication of this, because it relies on these and solely on these, there's no actual revenue because there's no service to provide this revenue. Small games being added on top to leverage the native assets is not the answer. The idea of buybacks happening to appreciate the price, that's always a short-term way of thinking. You cannot rely on this for the long term, and you cannot keep doing this. There's so much liquidity that people can put in these things. You cannot just create a game, go about the model and say, yeah, 1 million will enter this every single day. No, where are you going to conjure this 1 million from? You cannot just make a model based on speculation, based on people's money, and that they will most probably enter with. The reality is you can have good numbers on day 1, 2, 3. After that, there's no point. People are gonna lose interest, especially in today's world. So the buyback scenario is not something that you should rely on, and because of this, right now everything is operating inside the farm with recycled liquidity, meaning they're taking money from this part to give to that part, so on and so forth, that I showed you in AFD being drawn, liquidity from AFD being drawn in order to give back to the Pigpen holders. And that's not a good model. At some point you will run out of reserves, and then what? So I hope you stuck around till the end. I hope I conveyed the message, but again, you do what you want. I just wanted to showcase all the main points behind why I think this is not a farm that I would invest in, and why I think the whole model is very flawed and needs major tweaks. So thank you for sticking around again. See you in the next one. Have a good one.